This is Maddie Rempe from Cleveland, Ohio, and you're listening to Barbecue Central.
Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike your match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Good evening and welcome to the really big Barbecue Central show. This is the show where we talk about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling. The show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, which is also known as the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evening's live fire fun and frivolity show. If you want to get in contact with me through social channels, or follow the show during off-show hours, here's how you do all that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at bbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you get the newsletter coming up in about 12 minutes from now. If you have ever thought that you would love to get into the barbecue supply retail business, starting with one store, perhaps having dreams of growing that into a second store or third store or fourth store, and carry all of the premier lines, accessory, accoutrement that is related to this live fire industry, then you're going to want to stay tuned for the balance of the first hour. We will have a first-timer to the show and the owner of Texas Star Grill Shop in the greater Houston metro area. Rick Martin will join the show for the very first time. We'll get a background on Rick, if he had done anything professionally before he got into the Texas Star Grill Shop business, which is now past a budding success. It's a raging success out there in the greater Houston metropolitan area, perhaps dipping into the Katy, Texas area, which I think is around Houston. Houston, very big. I've become very familiar with Houston over the last almost year, and it is an expanse and broad and sweeping. I've said a couple different times, if you're in Cleveland proper, you are outside of Cleveland within 6 or 7 minutes. You are in the next city, suburb, what have you, in any direction except north, because that's Lake Erie. But east, west, or south, you are quickly in Newburgh Heights on the south. You are quickly in Ohio City or Lakewood going west. And east, you are quickly in Bracknell or Euclid if you're going in that direction. Houston, it seems you could go 20, 30, 40 minutes. You're still in Houston. Houston cops, Houston lines. It's an expanse. Where am I going with all of this? I don't know. But I can tell you that Rick Martin will be on the show, and we're going to talk all about owning a retail shop. We're also going to be talking about how he approaches customers when they are interested in the high-line items. Specifically, Rick happens to be a certified Franklin barbecue pit owner. If you would recall, Sam the Cooking Guy took me to task a couple months ago when he nearly fainted at the $5,150 retail price tag on the Franklin pit. But a lot of people that aren't accustomed to these kind of things, don't know the labor, cost of materials and shipping and all that stuff, don't take that into account when it comes to what the retail price is going to be. So there could be opportunity for a little sticker shock. So we'll talk to Rick about how he not necessarily sells around it, but how he's offering the value back to the customer and how successful he is when he has customers pull the trigger on that particular piece. So it's going to be a lot of great information, especially for anybody that might be thinking about getting into it. By the way, it kind of leads us into our 2024 Podumentary, which I already have locked and loaded. Maybe I mentioned it outside of Grill Fest 2023 that took place in Hartsville Hardware in September. That would have been last month. Almost a month ago, actually, to the day, just a few days over that, where Chuck Beadle will be joining us for the Podumentary, starting from scratch and opening up a barbecue supply store. So a little taster here this evening in the first hour with Rick Martin from Texas Star Grill Shop. Then we'll move to the second hour. We put it off last month, shame on us, but we had such an extensive list of 100% assurity questions, and Aaron Huntelman from Go Big or Go Barbecue sat in last month, if my memory serves me correctly. Actually, I think I'm wrong. I think that was Jason Baker all of a sudden a month ago. Wow, time flies. So I think Jason Baker sat in for last month's assurity questions. I believe I'm actually 100% right at this point. But we put off the 2023 Barbecue Central Show's Guest Hall of Fame. Would have been a weird spot for Jason to be in, to either just sit there and not participate as we did our own thing. I thought that was a little self-indulgent. So we all agreed, the embedded correspondents and myself, and by we all, I mean I changed the date until this month, and we're ready to go. So we will have a new class of Barbecue Central Show Guest Hall of Famers by the close of this evening, if you can believe it or not. If you can believe it or not. Believe it, because it's true. Don't forget you can follow me socially, Instagram, X, TikTok, and the Snappy Snaps at BBQ Central Show. We say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of the video streaming platforms. You can go to Facebook and Twitch/BBQ Central Show. You can also watch on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show. We also have a new YouTube poll question of the week, and I'm asking everybody this. Between the two, which cooker would you rather buy? A pellet cooker or a ceramic cooker? And currently 71% running away with it is pellet cookers, if you can believe it. Wow, I'm shocked. I thought it'd be a little bit more 50-50 there. I'm ceramic cooker guy all the way because it's way more flexible than pellet cookers. But I'm a little bit more seasoned than most of you probably, so don't worry about it. All right, let's start here this evening. I mentioned at the top of the show last week that I had reached out to the American Royal specifically for a statement on the scoring issue that happened at this year's American Royal, specifically the open portion, of course. And they did reply with something after the show aired last Tuesday, right close to the weekend, as it were. And their statement reads the following, and I quote, "The American Royal sympathizes with our barbecue teams affected by the technical data issue with the Kansas City Barbecue Society scoring system. The American Royal has a rich history in producing high-quality events and experiences, which remains our highest priority, and we share in the disappointment and frustrations experienced by our competition teams. The American Royal appreciates the transparency of the Kansas City Barbecue Society, plans to work with them in the coming months to ensure this doesn't happen again in the future. On behalf of the American Royal Board, staff, and volunteers, we share the disappointment of our competitors and express our apologies for the entire situation. This coming to us through Ken Wagner, chairman of the American Royal Board of Directors, and Jackie McClaskey, the American Royal president and CEO," close quote. So that is an official statement from the American Royal. As we continue to try and chase down an interview with KCBS, I did have a communication with Rod Gray, CEO at KCBS. I believe there's some type of official meeting that might be taking place tonight, in which he told me, depending on how the board allows him or not allows him to talk about things, we could see an interview coming up here over the next week, 2 or 3, or at some point in the future. Also, we might not see any of that. So we'll see what they think. Again, I know it would make for great content, but I think it's really bad form if for whatever reason the board does not allow Rod, or if Rod disallows himself to do shows related to the live fire industry and talk about this specifically and perhaps ad nauseum. It allows them to talk about it each and every time, make sure that they're answering each and every question, and build back some of that trust that might be lost from some of those teams. Fan feedback from past shows. Wally in Missouri. Greg, I heard you talk about cigars. Immediately, I thought about rule number 3 of the show. If it's free, it's me. Hook a brother up with some Aladinos. Wally, they're on their way. Absolutely. James in Georgia. Hey, Greg, this is from a few weeks ago when you had Aaron Franklin on the show. I was interested if you had heard anything further or that you have further thoughts on Aaron lending his pit to Adam Perry Lang to use out west. Podcast listener mostly, but occasionally live. Regards, James. James, I don't have any further thoughts on that at all. I think we all know where I stand with Adam Perry Lang. Kevin in Houston. Greg, how in the hell can we find Dan from Wauchula and get him back on the show for an update? That segment you played on the best moments a few weeks back was insane. I must know how Dan is doing immediately, if not sooner. Podcast listener only. But I would listen live if I knew Dan was calling into the show in advance. Regards, Kevin in Houston. Kevin, thank you for writing in the show. And thank you for living in Houston. Dan cannot call into the show because there's no number to call into the show anymore. That's not how it works. He might look to bring that back, but Kevin, Dan is not calling back into the show because it's technically impossible to do that right now. But let's continue to hold the thought that we might hear from Dan. Why not? He seems to be making a resurgence. Gang, you tired for settling for mediocre grilling experiences? It's time to step up your game, bring the ultimate flavor and cooker to the backyard barbecues. Pits and Spits Charcoal Grills offering the highest quality live fire cooking experience you can get in the market today. Using either wood or charcoal, their solid fuel grills produce those classic flavors you're looking for when you have the time to fire up the grill, cook for family and friends. With a large adjustable fuel tray, you can raise and lower the fire to control and fine-tune the heat. This is their take on the very popular Santa Maria style grill. You can check them out at pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. That's pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central and use promo code Charcoal Central, all one word, lowercase Charcoal Central, for $150 off any charcoal grill that they have on the website. So once again, pitsandspits.com, and that's the Pits and the Spits, spelled with the double T on both the Pits and the Spits.com/BBQ Central. Use promo code Charcoal Central, all one word, for $150 off any charcoal grill. The good folks at Pits and Spits. Believe it or not, Ryan will be back mid-November, so just a few short weeks. We get an update with him as the year closes out. Rick Martin from the Texas Star Grill Shop will be joining us here in just a second. Stick around, be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by CookinPellets.com, your number one source for quality wood pellets for all your pellet-driven cookers. You visit CookinPellets.com and see what they're offering, and then when you're ready to buy, visit a dealer, number one. Or if you got to do it online, Amazon.com or Lowe's.com or Walmart.com. Great selection, great shipping rates, as well as I tell you each and every week, you good folks over at CookinPellets.com. We talk a lot of sorry. We talk to a lot of manufacturers of cookers on the show, makers of accessories, and others who have something to do with making a product or a service for the live fire industry. But what about the retail locations that help all these companies get their products and services into the hands of the end user, namely people like you and me? My next guest owns a number of live fire retail locations in and around the greater Houston, Texas area, and we are here to talk about all of that tonight. So we will welcome in the first-timer and owner of Texas Star Grill Shop, Rick Martin, joining us. Rick, how are you, pal?
Great to be here.
We have a YouTube poll question of the week before we get into all the other business topics that have to do with owning a retail location. Nobody better to ask this question than you, Rick. Of the two, which cooker would you rather buy, a pellet cooker or a ceramic cooker?
Wow. I think if you have time, it's a Sunday and it's a beautiful day outside, you want a ceramic grill. But you're going to actually use the wood pellet grill a little bit more.
So we're going wood pellet.
Just ease of use. Yeah, wood pellet.
All right. 63% of the voting public also say that a pellet cooker is more their speed. I'm a ceramic cooker guy. Maybe I'm just a little bit more old school, but I do have a number of pellet cookers. I don't discriminate against cookers. I'm a lover of all cookers in all shapes, forms, and sizes. They all have their place, but between the two, I would rather take a ceramic cooker. So, Rick, before we get into talking about Texas Star Grill Shop, let's get a little background about you. Are you somebody that's always been from Texas, and were you doing anything professionally before you got into the live fire retail stuff?
Yeah, actually, I'm not even sure how I ended up where I'm at, but it's just life evolves. But it kind of started off. We were a sales and marketing company selling to grocery stores, along the way, a lot of brands, the customers were throwing a lot of brands at us that we didn't necessarily feel passionate about. So when I discovered a wood pellet grill up in Oregon back in about 2006 or so, I was intrigued with it, and I thought that's something that could be a big deal. And that was Traeger when Joe Traeger owned them and so forth. And I thought I could sell them to grocery stores, and which didn't really work out. But I talked them into buying I told Traeger I'd buy a whole truckload of those grills just to kind of get their attention. And I did. I bought a whole truckload, but then I got them, and I had to figure out how to sell them. Initially, tried to sell them to grocery stores. Did all sorts of things to do that. That didn't really work out. And before you know it, to sell them, I had to get involved in home and garden shows and just working it from there. And that really led to us. We became a distributor with Traeger at the time, and actually led to us opening up a retail grill store. And then we exited the Traeger distribution business.
So as you're selling into supermarkets, were you selling other products like rubs? Like, was it live fire stuff, or was it just any product you think you could sell into a supermarket you'd take on?
Most of it was processed meats. We're selling a lot of things like smoked sausage and things of that nature. So Texas Star Grill Shop is more or less born out of initially selling Traeger stuff, and then you open the retail location. Is that when Traeger Star Grill Shop is technically born? So it really is. Traeger made it. We actually became the largest seller of Traeger on eBay, and then Traeger made a decision that they were no longer going to allow anyone to sell online anymore or through at eBay and another service like that. At that time, we opened up a grill store, and our thought was we would advertise on Sports Talk and drive people to the store that way, and sell them Traeger grills. And so we opened up initially as a Traeger only store. It was pretty crude, pretty small, and pretty crude. But we did that for a couple years, and eventually in 2012 opened up Texas Star Grill Shop, which no longer was just a Traeger store. It was we brought on Weber and Sabre and Kamado Joe were our first brands we brought along with Traeger. And then it evolved from there. Today we have probably 60 different brands that we sell.
So as you are building into the 2012 launch of Texas Star Grill Shop, you have the relationship with Traeger. You're bringing in some of these other brands. How much inventory are you carrying for a single store? Is it close to $1 million worth of stuff? Is it way more than that? How do you gauge what you're going to need to have a successful opening?
At the time, we were still selling quite a bit of Traeger, so I was bringing that in by the truckload. So we did have a significant amount of inventory there. As we started those other brands, those were smaller orders, but we still had probably 300,000 to 400,000 of inventory we were carrying at that time for the store.
So it
was a small store.
Are you bringing in truckloads of Traegers and then putting them on eBay before you weren't allowed to do that, or were you just taking eBay orders and then Traeger was sending them off like a drop ship?
Well, at one point, it was a free for all, so you could sell anywhere. So yeah, I was selling a lot of Traegers on eBay. I was like their number one eBay seller for Traeger at the time, and it was pretty. There was a lot of engagement you could get. You could do the auctions and then start engaging with the customer and work a deal with them, and so I was shipping all over the country.
And when did they decide to corral it a little bit? What year was that?
So that would have been in 2000. We opened the store right after that. So I guess it would have been in about 2000. What was it? 2009. Yeah. That they corralled that.
When you first started, did you always have in the back of your mind that you were going to have multiple locations? I mean, let me back up for a second. Are you originally a Houston, Texas guy or a Texas guy, or did you land in Texas somehow?
I kind of landed in Texas. I actually, my family, I was born in Galveston, so I come from here. But we, as a kid, we lived in places like Chicago and Los Angeles area, and then Portland, Oregon. I met my wife in Portland, and that's where we discovered the Traeger. But moved to Houston in 1990. So I've been here for a good while.
Did you move for a job, or Houston just sounded sweet?
Man, it was crazy. I just decided to move. We lived in Portland, and it was a pretty rainy climate up there. I was looking at the cities in the South, and my parents had just recently moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we just decided to move to Houston. So we got all our stuff and put it in a budget truck and came on down. Hoped for the best.
So were you always thinking multiple location store from the beginning, or were you just hoping to make it work with one?
No, I think we were always thinking just about selling grills. How do you sell grills? And so we were always thinking about how to do that. And that could be a fair, that could be any way to sell it. The retail store, we weren't thinking about a retail store where people would just walk in. We were doing sports talk to drive people to the store. And so we were doing, radio remotes and all sorts of things to try to drive some excitement, and then have all the products on display, have an easy delivery system and so forth. So it really had never had a master plan at the time to have a bunch of stores. And it just kind of, our initial location was there on, Shepherd and 59 there, the West U area. And we've actually expanded. We had one suite, and now we have 3 suites. So the barbershop used to be right next to us, and then we convinced the landlord to make them move down a little further. And then now we're actually next to the barbershop again. So we'll try to push him out farther as well.
Will he not get bought out? He's got a thriving haircut business that he can't give up.
He's got a good haircut business, but he is about 80, so it's possible that he'll give it up at some point.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's going to give it up at some point, no doubt about that. So nobody gets out alive.
Yeah.
So as you are continuing to grow, how are you evaluating brands, grills, products to bring in? What makes the cut for you back in the early days?
Well, I think initially, crazily enough, we brought on, like, for example, when we brought on Weber, we found there was all of a sudden a whole nother customer base that was coming to our store that was Weber related. So at the beginning, whatever brand we brought on, it seemed like we were just adding customers to it. And it got to where we just kept bringing on brands because we were kept adding customers. Then we got too little too convoluted. So you kind of go through that whole phase. So at this juncture, we're very picky and very choosy, and we try to figure out how does this fit into our store? How does it fit versus other grills? We don't want to have two grills that look exactly the same, and then customers are trying to ask us which one we'd buy, and we're trying to sell the attributes of both grills. So we like to have differences that we can point to, that if you like that, that's the one you should get. And if you like that about that grill, that's the one you should get.
As you start to grow out locations, when does it make sense for you to not only expand about the location we're talking about, but let's go, somewhere down the road, 20, 30 minutes, or go to Katy or whatever? How are you deciding to expand every time you do it?
Well, we opened our second store in 2016. That initially was doing really well. And then an opportunity just came into a competitor wanted to kind of get out of the business. So they wanted us to really, it wasn't that we didn't have to pay very much for it, but they wanted us to kind of take over their business and pay them a little bit of money for the business that we were taking over. So that just made business sense to do at the time. So we opened up our third store. The thing is, you're either in your business, you're either growing or you're stagnant. So my attitude has always been that we should always be looking for growth, and otherwise, before you know it, your business is declining and going the wrong way. So that's where that comes from. So when we had our opportunity, COVID made things really boom. So we thought we were pretty hot. I think it was because of COVID, but in a lot of sense. But so we opened our fourth store. We also opened that in 2000. It was an area in 2020, the November 2020.
Wow.
It was an area that we always really, really liked. And maybe if I was opening one store and I'd had unlimited resources, I would have opened it there anyway. So we opened up that store. And you're always thinking, as you're growing, as you're doing it initially, that wherever you're going to open up, and this is going to be amazing. This location is incredible, and it's going to be the bomb. I'm going to be so happy that I did it. So optimism. So that was the fourth store. And then the fifth store we just opened here in 2023. How
far from one end of your territory to the other, what kind of a loop are we making time-wise to go to visit all the stores in a day? How much time does that take, you think?
If you went to visit all the stores and you didn't hit any traffic, it would be, you'd be going, basically 30 minutes to each store, 5 locations. So, but of course there's always traffic. So you have to factor that in. So sometimes you get hit by a little hour delay or something.
When you look at your operating numbers, do the stores tend to be pretty even amongst each other? Or do you have some stores that are far outperforming some of the others?
No, our store one location, our initial location, is still by far our best. And kind of, I almost think of it as that's our main location, and the rest of them are all satellite locations, if you will. But the funny thing is wherever we're spending the most time is where the store is doing really well at. So that's been a challenge to find the right people that put forth the same effort that we would put into it, if you know what I mean.
It seems like a never-ending job. How do you find the right people that are going to stick and carry that vision?
Well, I think the goal would be to create an entrepreneur out of it and allow that person to, if they want to work hard, to make lots of money. And so we've tried to put a pay structure in place that really enables them to do that. If they want to take it to a whole nother level, they can. So we have pretty good incentive programs. We have they get a guarantee for, first of all, if they don't sell anything, they still get paid. But they're also paid a commission portion of their pay. So if they sell a certain amount over they're all of a sudden being paid commission instead of their guarantee. And then we have incentive programs for the store to do that. So the hope is that someone looks at the opportunity and says, wow, I can make a lot of money. Let me figure out how I can grow this business. So that you attracting the person in that way.
Could you have the same pay structure in Cleveland as you do in Texas? Is there the same opportunity, you think, given the temperature challenges that we face up here for 6 or 7 months out of the year that you don't have to contend with?
Yeah, I think in Cleveland you'd have to have a store that was it couldn't be an exclusive barbecue like ours is. It would have to be something that was just changed to fireplaces and had big log displays, and you got into chimney sweeping and stuff like that one time a year, and then in the summertime you went to grills. I think that's the business model for our industry in the North, and it makes sense in a lot of ways. It's still possible a store could be 100% barbecue. There's probably enough people in Cleveland that would want to do that year round. And if you offered all the things like heaters and ways to create that outdoor environment, it probably could work.
You had broached the pandemic, and I want to hit on that here before we transition a little bit and talk about how you sell some of the high-level items that you carry in the store, specifically the Franklin Pit. How did you navigate it when you're in the midst of it? You said you thought you were pretty hot shit, probably because everything was selling like hotcakes. But how do you navigate it? And what took me by surprise as I'm covering this industry is you had some pretty high level, smart people and some really high positions with some of these manufacturers make some terrible decisions or decided to double down on years that we had never seen in the industry ever. And they thought that was what was going to be sticking going forward and fell on their faces. Some people went back to private ownership. Some people are looking like they might get delisted with how their stock prices are. No names, please. But how were you able to navigate it? And what was good that came out of the pandemic, and what might you still be trying to recover or work through?
Yeah, I think it's really challenging for our industry. What has happened, but certainly when it was all happening, we just thought, wow, we've really keyed into something. We are good. We thought we were hot stuff, like you say, and we're unstoppable. There was a thought during the pandemic that maybe we should have 10 stores, and we should go to definitely. I started driving to Austin and seeing where I could open a store there, or driving to Dallas to look around in those areas. So there is a little cockiness to it. And it's funny thing is, as you look back on it, it's obvious what was happening. But when you're in it, you kind of do have tunnel vision, because you really you're not living the life of all the other companies. You're just living your life, and your life, it looks pretty good. Things look really good. People are coming out of the woodwork to shop our stores. We were doing it, kind of give you an idea, that our store one location, we were getting 200 transactions on a Saturday. Of just people. It's like a grocery store. I mean, they were just coming in. We sell a little bit of meat as well. We sell Wagyu beef, a brand called Akaushi here that's grown here in Texas, and we sell that fresh. We have briskets and all that stuff. That stuff was going just crazy. I mean, people were coming in buying that like you would not believe. Our spices, it doesn't matter how many spices we brought in, we were selling it. But it was a whole different thing. We were bringing in, truckloads of charcoal. It was crazy. And go ahead.
So you're talking about, like, as you're in it, you can't see it. But when you're trying to reorder or source more stuff, and all of a sudden you're hearing it's going to be 6 months, or I don't know when we're going to get it. Like, don't you start to realize, oh shit, maybe the good times aren't just going to keep rolling, and then start to adjust from there, or not necessarily?
Well, the thing for us is we're a little bit larger and a little bit more concentrated, if you will. And so when we saw that there was issues, for example, there was issues on 32-inch built-in grills, but there was always someone with inventory. So we were buying that product. So we were finding the ones that had inventory, and we were just buying it all, and carrying it in our warehouse. And we got a little bit crazy to where we would just buy whatever was available. And it was selling there. And then all of a sudden it kind of stopped selling.
What do you do when it stops selling? Are you caught short?
Well, I think when it stops selling, then you start to, then brands matter more. It was getting to where you had to have a refrigerator that would fit into an outdoor kitchen, but now you have to have the right refrigerator that'll fit in an outdoor kitchen. So basically, in a lot of cases, we did have to, after the slowdown started, we had to mark down things that weren't strong brands that we just had on inventory because we were too aggressive in buying it. There's no inventory issue now. We've moved through all those products. But what did happen is after COVID ended, basically everyone has a grill that's 1 to 2 years old in their backyard. And so the common griller stopped purchasing. So our business shifted. In the last year, it's really shifted to outdoor kitchens. So it used to be that probably 60% of our sales were grills on wheels, if you will. And it changed to 60% of our sales now being outdoor kitchen related, which is more of a bigger project. It's people putting in pools, putting in, pergolas and, outdoor living spaces, adding onto their home. This has been a topic that we've really danced around on the show, but we've never really fully gotten into it. We're not going to fully get into it now because that's not really what we're talking about. But as somebody that's in a area where you can take advantage of an outdoor kitchen, you can't really do it up here unless you got heaters and all that other shit. But down there, you said it's a pretty big part of the business, especially now. I don't know if there's a general number, but if somebody's putting in a decent outdoor kitchen, built-in grill, maybe they're adding a smoker as well, got to have a flat top, the cement shit. What are you looking at from a cost layout for the homeowner, just generally speaking? What's the cost? So it's going to be, generally they're going to spend between $10,000 to $20,000 on the grill equipment alone.
Wow.
But then they're going to have a contractor that's going to we work with a lot of contractors, so we can refer to customers to those, or sometimes they have their own contractor. So the structure itself is going to be a part of it as well. And usually these are big projects that they're usually they could be associated with a swimming pool with waterfalls, and it's associated with a nice outdoor room that has a television out there. And so they're basically they're adding on to their home. And so the people that are doing this are a little on the wealthier side, if you will, and they're adding on to their home and they're putting more value into their home. Their home's going to sell for more money because they've created an outdoor living space.
I was going to say, are you reaping the reward on that?
Oh yeah. So without the outdoor kitchen business, we would be hurting. So I'm sure there is people that are hurting, but grills on wheels really slow down big time. I mean, just overnight they slow down, and but now our biggest sellers are actually more outdoor kitchen related.
Well, I'm not a competitor, but if I ever get into competition barbecue, my team name is going to be Grills on Wheels. Thank you for the team name.
Yeah, there you go.
Can I hold you up just for 1 second? Do a little piece of business. We'll come back and talk about how to sell Franklin barbecue pits.
Sure,
all
absolutely.
Right, stand by. We're talking with Rick Martin over at Texas Star Grill Shop. The website, by the way, is texasstargrillshop.com, and you can follow them socially. Instagram is Texas Star Grill Shop, and on the X, formerly Twitter, it's TX Star Grill Shop, if you would like to give him a follow over on those social medias. Currently, 35% of you are saying you would like to have a ceramic cooker over a pellet cooker. Well, why not consider a Primo? We know Primo is a ceramic cooker. It is fuel efficient. You can achieve low and slow temperatures for traditional barbecue meats. Also, just like I did on Sunday, for birthday/anniversary steaks, fired up the Primo to rocket hot, flip the grill grate over so it's closer to the coals, and 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, flip, 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 flip. And 2 minutes later, we have a exceptional sear on the outside of those steaks. A sous vide to make sure we have bumper to bumper, top to bottom. But then finish them off on the charcoal. Nothing better. Tastes so good. And you have the real ability. I mean, here is the key to all of it. I have the extra large Primo. I set it up where I have the separator in the middle. So I have one side with no coals, then there's a wall, and then there's a side full of coals, rocket hot. Then I have a deflector plate on the empty side with the grill grate. So I put in my wife's filet and my youngest daughter's filet on the indirect side. Now, mind you, we're running at like 400 degrees, 450 degrees before we really start to sear. Just flipping the steaks over routinely every 3-4 minutes, bringing that internal temperature up. They like them a little more done than me and the middle daughter. But easy to do. I don't have to worry about it burning. The deflector plate works like a charm. And then flip open that top all the way. I mean, all the way. You can daisy wheel the whole thing out, and now it's like a suction locomotive. And now we're rocket hot. Now we're searing everything. And again, just in a few short minutes. Great. What's the best part? Shut the top, shut the bottom. It extinguishes itself. Shake out the ash. And I have plenty of coals to do a extended chicken cook if I wanted to, or rib cook for this coming weekend. Promises to be a high of 50 degrees. So it's great. Once those ceramics get hot, that's the best. Aside from the 2-zone fire, you have the fuel efficiency of those ceramics. PrimoGrill.com is the place to go. You find a dealer near you. You take a look at all those different sized ovals. Again, I recommend the XL because nobody's complained about buying bigger. But pick the one that's best for you. They got all the accessories as well. PrimoGrill.com. And we'll be back with Rick Martin right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And this portion is being brought to you by Fireboard. Monitor up to 6 different temperatures simultaneously. Connect to Wi-Fi for cloud-based monitoring or connect via the Bluetooth. If you have smart speakers in your home, you're in luck because Fireboard is fully integrated with most of them. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. Don't forget about that new Fireboard beacon. Runs on the S1G, the super low one. I don't know. There's some technical term for that Ted talked about last time he was on. So check it out at fireboard.com. And we're joined once again by Rick Martin from Texas Star Grill Shop. Rick, are you a Fireboard dealer?
We don't. I need to look into that.
Darn it. Monitor up to 6. Yeah. And they're always coming out with some new. Do you carry it's totally off the subject, but do you carry wireless thermometers like the Meter or some nonsense like that?
The Meter is a huge seller. We actually buy direct from them and buy quite a bit of that.
I mean, does it work?
We also do lots of ThermoWorks, ThermoPens.
Yeah, ThermoPens are great. Does the Meter work? I mean, I've heard nothing but complaints about once you close the lid, you're pretty much effed.
It seems to work pretty well.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Franklin's Barbecue Pit. So I was approached by Matt Gase a couple months ago and started talking about maybe there would be some sponsorship of the show, maybe not. We talked about it. We were able to put something together, which is great. But I said, what would be really great is to not just talk to Aaron Franklin. I mean, is he not going to tell you that the pit's great? Of course. But let's talk about somebody who also believes what Aaron's talking about as far as construction of the pit, and then has brought it in to then retail it out to the consuming public. You're a very large dealer down there, a certified Franklin Barbecue Pit dealer. So how were you first approached to bring in Franklin's Pits, or did you go out in search on your own?
They actually approached us, but there was an opportunity then when we first brought it on. Aaron Franklin would do a store appearance That was a pretty big deal. He's an amazing person. Not only was he able to sell the pit to, or basically do the selling speech to many customers, but it was amazing to watch the customers, come and talk to him, and then someone stand in line to talk to him next, and then someone stand. Before you know, you had 70 people in line waiting to talk to him, and he gave them all the time of day.
Wow! So
that was really quite an experience there. That's how it started. But I would say on the brand, I was checking our landing pages on our website, and this was pretty powerful stuff. But the Aaron Franklin grill is number 3. And our little website had 10,645 clicks to it. So if you're looking for eyeballs to your store, that's a signature item you need to carry. We've sold 23 of them so far this year. So it's we've been able to sell it. It is a difficult sell. I'll say that it's a difficult sell in that it's expensive. But if you start going through all the points of why it's expensive, people start to kind of understand. They don't buy it right then. A lot of them come back later and buy it. So once that seed is planted, but if you're able to go through those main points, like the quality of the, pickled and oiled steel and the chaotic airflow and the smokestack and the smoke collector and the airflow system. And then somehow say, this thing is going to last probably a lot more than 20 years. But if we think about 20 years, that's only $257 a year.
Yeah.
So it's not much you're going to spend for a really quality pit. And then, we've cooked briskets on it and so forth. It is an amazing pit and will make amazing brisket.
When you're being pitched on becoming a dealer, what are you looking as far as, you're experienced at this now. So when somebody's coming at you with something new, regardless of if it's Aaron Franklin or not, what are you looking at? What matters most to you aside from selling it to have potential to bring into your store?
How does it fit into our store? How does it fit into what our product offering is? How big it is, because there is a square footage issue. If you keep bringing in, like for instance, we're always approached by people that make pits. But if you said yes to all of them, your whole store would be taken over by pits. So you really do have to be really kind of choosy which ones you're going to take on and which ones you're not. So for us, we sell Franklin, and we sell a brand called Old Country barbecue pits, which is kind of mostly Texas, I guess, but has a pretty good following in places like Academy and so forth.
So after you bring it in and you put one on the showroom floor, as you talked about, it is a bigger ticket item. So if you're selling 23 of these over the course of the year so far, and we still got, maybe 2 months left, whatever, compared to some of the other stuff, let me ask a better question. As you're explaining all the stuff that you had mentioned on the Franklin barbecue pit, is somebody buying it like, okay, I'll take it? You said most people are coming back, but is there opportunity for folks to do a one-call close, as we would say, or is it not usually going to transact like that?
I assume there has been some one-call closes, but an example of a sale that I saw just recently was a police officer that had come in. He'd come in like 10 times to look at the pit, and he finally made the decision to do it. And but I think it becomes really a bucket list, and man, that's what I want. But wow, I don't know when I'm going to pull the trigger. But there's going to be a reason at some point. Maybe he gets a lot of overtime, or there's maybe the Houston Astros won the World Series, but they didn't. But
they did
something like that.
If this would have been 10 years ago, Aaron would have brought the pit out 10 years ago. Is this an easier sell? Certainly it would be less expensive. It would probably be comparable, but materials and all the other stuff are just going through the roof at this point. I guess the point I'm driving at is you wouldn't have as much competition from what I would call the brainless cookers as you would present day. Does Does the pellet grill hinder the sale of the offset?
I think it does. However, I would say that it's the same customer, and in our market, for the customer that can afford it, they like to have both of them. Cal McNair is the owner of the Houston Texans, and he said one time on a sports talk, he was saying how he cooks his brisket. He puts it on his offset smoker and starts it there, and then finishes off on his pellet grill and goes to sleep. So I think there's a little bit of that. I think there is definitely a culture for the offset smoker. We love that really strong smoke flavor in Texas, in Houston, and I think that's part of it. I think they can't give it up all the way, but it's hard. It's a little harder to come home at night at 6 o'clock and fire that thing up and cook something. It's more of an event-driven exercise.
I have a fairly large YouTube personality come on my show once a month, and we were talking about the Franklin Barbecue Pit right when they started with the show, and I told him the retail price was $5,150, and after he got done with his fainting spell, he's like, "Wow, that just seems like a lot." So when you have a customer come in, fall in love with it, but maybe they don't see the price tag right off the bat, what do you do to overcome sticker shock?
Well, I think you've got to talk about the reasons why it's a little bit more expensive. There's nothing, there's no cost taken out of it. I don't think Aaron Franklin would allow it.
Yeah.
Honestly, if he could get down to $3,000, it would sell really, 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 really good. But he doesn't want to cut anything out of it. So it's built like a tank. It's built with extreme quality. So the only way to really do that is to start reasoning with people, and start talking about how much it's going to be. This is a long time experience. $257 a year for the next 20 years is not too bad.
Do you think there is I don't know if yearning is the right way to go about it, but is there a calling to get back to a stick burner? Certainly it's like well entrenched, especially down in the Texas area, but with the advent of pellet cookers, and obviously you can use some other ancillary items and things like ceramic cookers to help you manage a fire, where the skill set isn't necessarily needed as it once was. Do you think there is a want to return to some of that?
Oh, absolutely. The craft of it, if you will.
Perfect.
And certainly around the holidays, there's a lot of traditions here in Texas, especially where we're cooking a turkey or cooking a prime rib, and people are managing the pit, and that's part of, you don't want to get stuck inside all the time, right? So you go outside, and of course our weather is really nice in November and December usually. But so you kind of want to go outside. You don't want to talk to some old lady, inside the house. So you're able to go outside, put some logs on the fire, keep it going, kind of manage it. And I think there's a lot of family traditions that do that.
As somebody who has operated it, I hear all the time about how easy it is and how, no dampers needed on the firebox door. All those holes cut into it are done on purpose. How easy is it to manage a fire?
It's really super easy. We just cooked a brisket last Friday all day long, and it just hung right in there at 250 degrees. Didn't even. So yeah, very, very, very easy. It does. You are managing the fire, but that's part of the fun of it. Mm-hmm. You are putting a log on and making sure the fire is at right around that. I think Aaron Franklin says 688 degrees. So trying to manage the efficiency of the fire, but that's part of the fun, part of the challenge of it. You drink a glass of water or beer or whatever in between, and then as it goes down, you put another log on the fire.
If somebody's in the greater Houston area, they want to visit one of your stores and are interested in a Franklin Pit, are there any like deals going on, or is there anything that you can help them out with?
We just finished a deal where we're doing we just decided to run a little hot promotion for those that have it on their bucket list, but haven't quite made the decision. So we just did a 5 payments of $900, $900 per month for the weekend. But anyone that's listening to this show that would like a Franklin and is in the Houston area, we'll extend that same offer to them. We just ended it on Saturday.
So that's a pretty decent savings.
Yep. No interest, no credit check.
But you're not giving it to them until you pay the thing off, though, right?
No, we're giving it to them after they pay the first $900.
Oh, way!
You know,
Look at you,
Mr.
Trusty.
Yeah, no. The thing is, people are pretty honest when it comes down to it.
Holy moly! Well, too bad I don't live in the greater Houston area. I'd come down and snatch that up. I like to save $500 like anybody else. So, so
absolutely.
If you're a listener of the show, you're in greater Houston, go see Rick and tell him you want a special deal. He'll honor that, which we certainly appreciate. Rick, it's been a great interview. Love getting the background on you, the store, and most importantly, how you're selling that Franklin barbecue pit. Continued success, and hope to have you on again soon.
A lot of fun. Thank you so much.
You got it. That's Rick right there. Texas Star Grill Shop. So if you want to check him out and see what he's up to, I mean, at some point I have to get down there, right? I'm there. Hello. Maybe in April. I think we're headed back down in April. We'll check it out. All right. We're going to wrap the first hour. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. We thank Rick Martin for joining us last segment. Once again, his website is TexasStarGrillShop.com, and you can follow him socially, Texas Star Grill Shop on Instagram, or over on the formerly Twitter, TX Star Grill Shop. And I mean, what a deal he's doing. I'm no mathematician, but 5 payments of $900 or 9 payments of $500? Either way, that comes out to $4,500, and they take care of the tax. What? That's like $600. Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue is saying, I identify as Guy the Cooking Sam. I'll be there first thing tomorrow. Sorry, Guy. Look like Guy Joe is going to be a new Franklin Barbecue Pit owner. So you got to live down there to take advantage of that special deal, or within the general area. I think Joe's like 10 hours away from Houston, if I'm not mistaken. I am probably mistaken, by the way. I have no idea exactly time frames, but I'm sure it's got to be at least 8 hours. That I'm pretty sure of. So if you're in the greater Houston area and you want to save money on the Franklin Barbecue Pit, take advantage of that special deal that Rick just told us about. I mean, that is spectacular, outrageous. Good for you. And it's not a layaway. Give them the first payment of $500 and away you go. It's guys like Rick that continue to inspire my faith in humanity. Good for you, Rick. Continued success, and we'll look to have you back on, no doubt. All right, we are going to reload here for the second hour. Remember, tell all your friends and neighbors that in the second hour, we're going to be putting together and inducting a brand new Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Fame class. The class of 2023. My names are so good. I'm so excited to get going. I want to rip through the top of the show so we can get immediately into the Hall of Fame nomination. And if I'm this excited about my names, I can only imagine what Doug is bringing to the table, what John is bringing to the table, what Rusty is bringing to the table. Does anybody think we have opportunity for multiple unanimous decisions just as we go around to give our names of nomination. We might see it. Stick around. Second hour coming up.